Hello, General Biology, and welcome to Section 4.4, Chapter 4, and this is the first in the screencast series for this section. Okay, the last part is going to be about biomes. And as I said to you in the beginning of this chapter, there's about 11 different biomes that we need to talk about and go over. And I'm thinking, and I wrote myself a note for this, I'm thinking that maybe I'm going to do the biomes as a separate quiz, test, quest. I'm not sure exactly what at this point. But since we've already covered so much in the first three sections that we make 4.1 to 4.3 a test and then the biomes a separate part because there's a lot with the biomes. Okay, so one of the things that we started to talk about when we first started this chapter were the levels of organizations, and we started out with an individual, then we went to a population, then we went to a community, then communities together made up the ecosystems, and then different ecosystems with similar climate, similar plant vegetation, similar animal species, they make up what is known as a biome. So there are certain characteristics that are within those communities that are similar that we clump them into a biome based on, as I said, the climate, the dominant plant species, and the dominant animal species. So one of the questions that we might ask and we might focus on is, why does the character of biological communities vary from one place to another? And if you're putting things together, you're going to quickly say, well, Mrs. Saunders, because of the different latitudes. Not everything is at the same latitude on the Earth. So different latitudes would create the different communities. And I would say, good, I'm glad that you're applying that information. And I might ask you, well, what else defines that? And hopefully what I've been saying is, well, because not every place has the same climate, not every place has the same temperature and precipitation, and that's going to change. And that's great. Hopefully you're putting all of that together. So we're going to learn about these biomes so that we can say, you know, temperate rainforests grow in the Pacific Northwest, while areas to east of the mountains are much more drier. And we're going to explain why that happens. So we will watch this video clip and in class, and of course we'll probably bring in some other resources as well. Alright, so let's consider that biomes are going to have abiotic and biotic factors. So one of the key concepts that we need to do is characterize what those abiotic and biotic factors are going to be, because that's how they're described. They're described in terms of those abiotic factors like climate type, soil type, the chemistry of the water, and the biotic factors like the plant and animal life that happens to be in there. Okay, so we mentioned, because I was answering for you, that latitude is one of the things that can influence a biome. And we also have to think about the heat that is transported by the winds that are also going to be a factor that affects the global climate. We're going to also consider, where is this land or this area located? Is it close to a main water source like an ocean? Or is it in the center surrounded by dry land? Or is there a mountain range that happens to be in that particular area? Because all of those things can influence the climate as well. Remember I said to you, and just as to recall this, we don't get a lot of tornadoes in our area, not extreme ones, because we've got the Appalachian Mountains that protect us from the storms. I've gone through the Lehigh Tunnel, and on our side of the Lehigh Tunnel, we might have a little bit rain, get through that tunnel, and it's snowing on the other side. And that's because the mountains are protecting us from that front and that cold. So the one side might get a little bit more snow than the other side gets, and that can influence the climate. We talk about regional climates. Let's take a look at the state of Oregon. Oregon is located up in this area of the United States, and it gets a lot of moisture off of the Pacific Ocean, the warm Pacific Ocean. So what winds up happening is their summers in that area tend to be relatively cool because of the moisture coming from the ocean, and they also tend to be relatively wet because of that moisture as well. There's a mountain range that comes down through here, and on the opposite side of that mountain it's much drier, and the weather conditions that they have there are a little bit hotter than they would be on that coast. So its placement, where are these biomes located? Oregon, as I said, borders the Pacific Ocean, and the moist air is going to be carried by the winds, so it's going to go over the waters and it's going to bring rain in, and one side of the mountainside, as I said, is going to wind up getting more of that moist water, and it's going to be more green, more lush, a bigger variety of plant life and animal life that's going to be there. Where on the other side, as it comes over and comes down, not as much water is brought with it. So as the air descends, it's going to warm, it's going to become drier, and you're going to get less rainfall. So here's that example of how climates can determine whether the biome or the characteristics of the biome, what type of vegetation is going to be able to grow in that area. So the clouds on the ocean side are going to drop rain and snow. The wind is going to go up the mountains, so it's going to help bring that rain up the mountains. As the air sinks, as it gets up in the mountains and it cools down, it's going to come on the downside of the mountain, and it's going to expand and warm. And instead of dropping moisture now, it's going to absorb the moisture, so it's going to make that area drier. So as a result, we see that the west coast of Oregon has many different regional climates than the east coast of Oregon would be. We're also going to see different plant communities and animal communities in here, and yet it's the same central location, but because of the mountain ranges, this impacts what type of climate they're going to have. So because of this, we need to classify the biomes, and ecologists do this by breaking down the terrestrial ecosystems into at least 10 different groups based on their climate and communities that they have, plant and animal communities, and they call this a biome. Biomes are described in terms of their abiotic factors, as I said, the climate, the soil, and their biotic factors like plant life and animal life. So we're going to talk about those 10 biomes, and we're going to include mountaintops and ice caps, and we're also going to include marine ecosystems. So that's going to be 12 that you need to be responsible for and know. So our major biomes are going to be the tropical rainforest, the tropical dry forest, the tropical grassland, savanna, and shrubland, the desert, the temperate grassland, the temperate woodland and shrubland, the temperate forest, the northwestern coniferous forest, or the taiga, the boreal forest, and the tundra. So those are the ones that we are going to discuss, and you're going to need to know the characteristics of each of these so that if I put the characteristics down on a test, you're going to need to be able to tell me which biome it is. So here's a map, pretty colorful map. I like this map. That shows the location of the major biomes, and you can see, whoops. So you can see that this aqua blue area is the tropical rainforest. So we have tropical rainforest in this area. There's tropical rainforest that runs through this part of Africa, and there's tropical rainforest that runs down here, and a little bit here, and a little bit here. So when you see that, you can say, oh wow, that's right along the equator where we see our tropical rainforest. We have our tropical dry forest, which will be the brown colors. And tropical dry forest, as we see, will have a rainy season and a dry season. So here's our tropical dry forest in this area. We have a little bit of tropical dry forest here, tropical dry forest here, and some tropical dry forest over in this area. Our tropical grassland, shrubland, savanna is going to be in the lighter green. So we have a touch of that over here in North America. A lot of it is down here in South America. A lot more in Africa, in these two locations. A little bit in Australia and some in Asia. The desert is going to be the orange area. And we do have desert within North America. There's some desert in South America. But Africa and this area and parts of Asia, this is desert. We can see this is desert. Most of Australia is desert as well. The temperate grassland is going to be dark green, and look at the temperate grassland. Most of North America, I would say, part of South America, and then up here through Europe and parts of Australia. We have the temperate woodland and shrubland. That's going to be in kind of like the magenta color, and this is going to be the temperate woodland and shrubland in Europe. We've got a little bit over here on the west coast of North America, and a little bit down in South America as well, and at the tip of Africa and parts of Australia. The temperate forest, look at this. We have a lot of temperate forest. Where we live is a temperate forest. This part of North America is a temperate forest. Europe, most of Europe is a temperate forest, and part of China and Asia is that temperate forest as well, and Australia has some temperate forest. The northwest coniferous forest, that's in blue, so we see it here. In South America, darker blue, sorry, we're looking for the darker blue, so that's there. And that's the only area where we're going to have the northwest coniferous forest. The boreal forest, or the taiga, is in this light purple. Okay, so we're seeing this in the most northern regions. And then the rest is the tundra. That is in the dark purple areas. I'm going to end this here, and we'll start the next screencast defining the biomes.